Shit, I'm about to go wait in this place when you dropping the bass in. The beat inside the streets of awaken. I'm making to break my foot off of somebody's ass. I'm waiting for someone to say my name so I can annihilate them. Okay, then everyone was screaming the rape when I was kicking at the gate till it caved in. Barely scraping by, but now I'm paid. Look at the paper I raked and I'm caking like Jay-Z and Drake. And I hate when people say that I ain't killing shit. The game is my playpen. I punch you in the face and end up breaking your break bands. I'm far from Hollywood. I'm posted up at the days in. Even though the industry say I'm the latest sensation. Drop the stuff at the award show. Becoming complacent. Mama saw me on TV with just a woman in the basement. You a Captain Saber, who you just tucking the cake in. I fuck your baby mama in the ass of the bake.
What's up, everybody? You Control You podcast. You know how we start every episode with gratitude. Once again, it seems to be the constant theme for me as of late. I'm very grateful for my family. We had a very candid conversation this weekend, and to be able to have a tight unit where you can be blunt and have a great conversation with your kids, with your wife, and just sit everybody at the table and say, look, this is the direction that we need to go in, and everybody be on board. There's no words to really explain how grateful I am of that. So that's what I'm most grateful for as of now. What about you, sir?
Man, waking up this morning is always a blessing.
Yeah, that is true.
I state that often, but I got to also shout out my family. We had a great weekend. The girls had dance recital, Christmas recital yesterday, so I was at two of them. They're competition dancers, so the recitals are more rudimentary for them, but it's cool to see them all get dressed up and have some fun out there. My two oldest are now mentoring some of the tots.
Oh, nice.
And so they were up there showing them the dances or doing the moves with them so that the littles can pay attention. And so blessed that we're all happy, healthy, and moving forward this holiday season.
Nice. So this episode where I've been trying to get us to the point where we can have interviews, and the first interview I did was we had Matt Brown, former UFC fighter Matt Brown, in the studio. That was really cool. And today with us, we have Josh Kosnick, who is, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, of Kairos. Okay. I said that.
The definition if you want to get into it, too.
Yes, in 1 second. Kairos, Coaching and Consulting, and also has his own podcast, Spartan Leadership Podcast.
Yep.
Okay. So, yes, please let us know. How'd you come up with the name?
So Kairos has a couple different meanings. So I've always been enamored with the Greek culture. So it has a very ancient Greek definition, where it's a moment in time or an era, and it's the opportune moment. It also has an ancient or Old Testament biblical meaning, which is a divine time when God acts. And so I just believe right now is the most opportune time for us to own our stuff and become who God meant us to be. And so I wanted to build a coaching platform that encompassed all of that. So Kairos was the name we went with.
That's incredible. How long did you think on that? How long were you sitting there thinking about, what should I name this?
Right. So I came from the financial world. I owned a large financial firm, and in 2021 sold that. And 6 months it took negotiations for exit of that and us to come to agreements. And so I would say when I decided was about, so it was June to December. It was about September that I decided, okay, I'm going to do the coaching thing. I was getting recruited by every financial firm in the country, and I'm like, I'm going to do a different thing. I'd say it was about a good 2 months of just thinking through names, thinking through iterations. I knew I didn't want to use my name. I wanted to use something more that could translate beyond me as I build this coaching platform up.
So you're already diving into it. You already jumped ahead of me. So Josh has 20 years of leadership experience. He's a former managing partner at Northwestern Mutual. That's I'm guessing what you were talking about. Host of the podcast, also married with 4 children.
Yeah, 13, 11, 9, 7.
Man, I think my hands are full with having 2, and so going on 21 and 14. But you 4? That's How do you maintain that?
I have an unbelievable spouse. That is one way. I think that one of the biggest decisions or most important decisions we ever make is who our life partner is going to be. And I chose right. I made that sales pitch effectively.
I like how you put that. Nice.
And she's unbelievable. So that is key one. But the other piece of it is I always teach this in my coaching is you put your want-tos in your calendar before your have-tos. And so my want-tos are being at the dance recitals yesterday, making sure that next year I have their dance competition set up, that I have my son's basketball and baseball and football schedule. So if I'm going to coach or if I'm going to be there, those are in my calendar first because work have-tos, and especially as you're building businesses, those are always going to be there. And if you don't have those want-tos in, your have-tos will bleed over your want-tos. So I'm meticulous about my workout schedules and my family schedules and making sure that every other work aspect fits in between those.
See, that's incredible. That is something that honestly I have only discovered since COVID. COVID is really what forced me to sit my butt down and like really redesign my schedule. Before that, it was I have to do all the things that I need to do first. The wants can wait. And it's incredible hearing someone else have that mindset. How long did you always have that mindset, or how long did it take you, and when did it really click over?
Well, there's phases, right? When you're building businesses, like when I started building my financial advisory practice, I was 12 to 14 hours a day. Didn't have kids at that point. Was fortunate that that waited a little bit. And then as we had kids, I had to readjust priorities. And so the priorities were, hey, I want to be a great father. I still want to be a great husband. So I started weaning down my evenings. Instead of 5 evenings a week, I said, all right, I'm only going to take meetings on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I was like, all right, now it's only going to be 2 days a week. And then it's going to be 1 day. And then eventually it was no days. So it was a weaning over time that got me to that point that I allowed. And what's interesting about it is my dad always taught me this, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. A busy person will prioritize effectively. A person that's not so busy will wait to the last minute, as if that's the only thing they had to do that day. And so as my calendar compressed, I got more effective. I realized, so for instance, if you're going on vacation and you left today at noon, you knew the flight was going out at noon. How effective are you from the moment you wake up till the moment you get to the airport?
I'm the type, I want to get everything packed, ready. If it wasn't packed the night before, I need to get everything ready to go. And then so I can just say, okay, I'm ready to go.
And if you had this podcast to do and if you had a couple other work things to do, did you get them done before you left?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to.
See, when time's compressed, when we compress our time and realize we only have X amount of time to get it done, we're far more effective. When we have all the time in the world to get it done, we're the least effective. So as you compress your calendar and you realize as you prioritize it, you get far more effective in the condensed time frames.
I hope people are listening. That's some tidbits for business and life right there. So you talked about the financial world. You talked about getting into working 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm taking it that was with Northwestern.
Yeah, it was when I was building my advisory. So we were all independent contractors underneath that umbrella. So you're building your own practice, building your own team, all that different stuff. And then I sold that practice to buy the firm out.
So how did you get started in that field? What inspired you to get into that?
So my father. So my father was in that since I was 9 months old. And I'm very much like him, type A, hard-headed, oldest of four. So I was trying to avoid him like the plague. My teenage and early 20 years, we were button heads. And so I went to college to play football, not to go to college. That was probably wrong intentions looking back on that, but it was what it was. As soon as I was done playing football, I dropped out of school. And I started working at Circuit City when I was 16, selling, we're the same age, so I was selling pagers and the old version of cell phones back then, the Nokias and all that jazz.
Oh, man.
So
you're showing our age right now.
Well, I know. to that point, when we got the colored screen Nokia, that was the
changed the game.
It was real, and I had all the fresh stuff because of that. But I continued that through college, and then I switched over to Best Buy. So I had an offer as a sales manager at Best Buy after I dropped out of school. So I took that, worked that for 2 years, was running a top 3 store in the country, and I was one of the youngest sales managers in the country. So I knew other sales managers getting paid more than me, and I was whooping their butt month in and month out. And I asked for a raise, and they told me no. And I was the one that was always taught, if you do better, you get more.
Yes.
And so that didn't sit well with me. And the same week, a call came in to Best Buy by an advisor that worked for my dad that called on me to sit me down for a meeting to try and get me as a financial advisory client. He got referred to me. He didn't put 2 and 2 together that I was his boss's son. And it was a really funny phone call because the whole time he's trying to get me to sit down with him, I'm sitting here going, did my dad put him up to this? And the truth of the matter was he didn't. He was just literally doing his job and reaching out for clients. But I politely declined the meeting, but I sat back in my chair, and it was like 2 days after I got told no for a raise. And I remember sitting there going, I should be doing that. So I called my dad, kind of tail between my legs, and said, hey, I want to look at this more seriously. And then I gave Best Buy 2 months because it was the holiday season. I came in the next day. They said, turn in your keys. I was trying to be respectful.
Oh, wow.
They said, this is how much corporate really truly cares about people, right? They said, turn in your keys. And I said, okay. Well, that gave me 2 months to prepare to be the best, get off to the best start in my new career with 0% base, zero salary, like just go get it. Gave me 2 months to prepare and get off to a fast start.
That's amazing. Well, there's so many people that the way you put it, tuck my tail between my legs. There's so many people that struggle with swallowing that ego, especially at that age. I don't know if at that age I would have been able, you know what? I know I wouldn't have been able to at that time because I know what was driving me right then. So that's one, incredible to hear. And kudos to you for doing that. That's absolutely amazing. Now, as we go forward, now, I don't like asking questions on social media about people's personal life. And I seen you talking about, only because it's better to have a conversation in person.
But I already told you I'm an open book, so you ask.
Yeah. But I seen you talk about your split from Northwestern Mutual. Could you, why did you leave there? And what was I'll leave it at that. Why did you leave there?
Yeah, I didn't want to. So when I say I exited a company, people are like, oh, that's cool. How much did you sell for? They're like, oh, what was the payout? Or you exit. So that was my third exit. We had owned, we'll first start with my advisory practice, but that wasn't the first sale or exit. We owned an Anytime Fitness downtown, my wife and I. We exited that, sold it to the largest franchise owner in the country who's local, Andy Gunlock. And then sold my financial practice as I took over the firm. That was my second exit. And then ran the firm for 5 years. My idea, I was one of the youngest appointed managing partners in the country, was to run it from 36 to 56. That was my plan. And you probably heard the classic line, you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans.
Yeah.
So that was my plan. Run it from 36 to 56, grow it as big as possible, have as big of impact as possible, continue making young men and women, turn them into millionaires by helping others and serving others in the community. And then at 41, that all fell apart. And the reason it fell apart is a couple different things. We were running hard and fast, which is a good thing. Like through COVID, which was a big scare for all of us, I had to send 250 people home, right? Technology figured out, and this is how, in the financial advisory world before 2021, this is how business was done, side by side, across the table, across the desk, at the kitchen table. That's how financial, that's how we did business. 2020, that all changed. And you know what was interesting about it is like Skype technology had existed for a decade before.
Yeah.
But we were just so interpersonal that we just thought we had to do business face to face. So it was actually a blessing in COVID to learn, hey, we could still have great interpersonal relationships through Zoom. Yes, it's better to connect face to face like you and I are doing today, but we could still do business. And we grew 30% through COVID. So there were some underlying currents through my firm. And one of them is I had recruited a young leader that was doing a really good job, very talented. And he was causing some stress in the organization because he was what I thought was immature. And I had, and this is some of my own ego or hubris, I had developed plenty of immature people into being mature humans. So I just kept chalking it up to that, and I'm just going to keep pouring into him and loving him and working with him. It wasn't immaturity, it was character flaws. And that's something that you really can't mature out of people.
Yeah.
They have to choose to change. This individual didn't want to choose to change. So 18 months before the split, he had given me an ultimatum. And the ultimatum was, hey, make me this position or I'm leaving. Without even knowing that he had to pass tests, I couldn't snap my fingers to do it. You have to pass tests. You have to go through this. It wasn't even an earning thing. There was literally steps to be taken. The other piece of it was I called his bluff because he said that another company had offered him $500,000. Well, I had a relationship with that other company, and I called the managing partner. And I said, hey, did this happen? He's like, no, that didn't happen. And so found out that he lied to my face as well.
You bluffed the wrong person.
And so... Well, it's like, no one likes to be delivered an ultimatum. If you're in a marriage, if you're in friendship, if you're an employee-employer situation, that's just not a good way of going about things. Fast forward 18 months, and our relationship had frayed enough because what I was trying to do is develop him. Well, he had narcissistic tendencies. So for those that haven't dealt with narcissists or those that have, when you box a narcissist into a corner, it's like boxing a tiger into a cage. They come out swinging because their survival mechanism kicks in. And so instead of going about maturing and working with me, his leader, he chooses to sue me for discrimination to advance his own career or to get me out of the way. The company had already done their homework, knowing it wasn't a discrimination thing. But as soon as he sued me, a month later they chose to terminate me so that they didn't get the bad press.
Yeah. Ooh. And especially at that time, man. So then.
Yeah, and to give the context at that time, BLM was the thing.
Yeah.
Right? So he played that political card well. And it was just interesting. I mean, that was why they really didn't want the bad press, is because the George Floyd, the BLM riots, like all of that 2021 was still hot. And so in hindsight, looking back on it, it's like, I get it. Well done. On the flip side, it was a stab in the back. And I mean, this is a person who was sat at my kitchen table with my family that I poured into weekly, that I gave $10,000 worth of custom suits out of my closet. If I was racist, I was probably the worst racist on the planet. Like, I was doing the worst job of being a racist.
You're fired. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love the way you put that. Where did that put you mentally at that time?
In the darkest spot of my life. And not only that situation and someone hurting or choosing to go down that, but slander my name and all that. The worst part of it was the company choosing that I had loved and poured my blood, sweat, and tears into, that when the moment that I needed them the most, they're like, sorry, we're out.
Yeah. So
I went to a spot, dark. One thing I chose correctly was, hey, for the next summer, I'm not making any decisions. I'm going to spend this time with my family. I'm going to regroup. When am I ever going to? And financially, I was fine, right? So I could do that. Being in the financial world has its perks. I know what to do with money. And I paid down that debt of buying the firm quicker than I would have, or quicker than anyone would have if they would have upgraded their lifestyle or chosen to spend on some frivolous things. No, I chose to pay down debt. So I was debt-free on that company, and we had our mortgage and whatnot, but we were doing well, so I could do that. Little did I know that negotiation was going to take till December. So I was like, all right, we'll get the kids in school, then I'll start making some decisions. By the time the kids got back in school and I'm sitting there not being of service to the world, not being able to do what I do best and lead people, I was going batty.
Oof.
Mentally, internally, I'm going batty. And that's where you see a lot of people that either sell a business or they lose their spouse later in life. When you don't have a purpose that's driving you, you've probably experienced, an elderly person that loses their spouse and they die the day later or a month later because their purpose for living is gone.
Gone, yeah.
And so we as human beings are designed to have a purpose, men and women. And so we have to know what that is. And my hands were tied, so I'm doing a lot of inner work. And it was a blessing. One of my coaches at the time said, Josh, journal. And I'd always known the power of journaling. I just never did it.
Yeah.
So I journaled. And I was like, man, you just want me to write down all the shitty feelings I have right now? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So now I effectively dub it my pain journal. But at the same point, it was therapeutic because not only did I get to process all the stages of grief, I got to dream about the future. So that 6 months, as painful as it was in that present, was a huge blessing today because I got to process the grief and vision the future and be able to move forward.
So how long did it take you to work through the mental and the emotional darkness? And we talk about darkness often enough on here, to then say, okay, basically, how long did it take you to work through your darkness to find your purpose again?
So I would say within 6 months, I had traction, but I wasn't healed. Come that January, I closed the negotiation on December 29th, 2021. January 1, I'm like, all right, here's the new purpose, the new direction. We're going into coaching. We're going into impacting people. We're going to go into nationally speaking and create this new business. I decide I'm still not mentally right. I need to become that killer again that started these businesses. So I did 75 hard for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was January of 2022. And I didn't do it because I wasn't in great physical shape, because I was.
No, you were. I've like those of you that don't know, I've watched Josh train. When I was training for fights, I would watch Josh train. He was crazy inspirational watching this man go. You would bounce around like a freaking tiger in that gym sometimes. It's crazy.
So I let myself slip a little bit in that time frame, but I was still in good shape for a 40-something-year-old dude. But I need my mental back. I need that killer back to build something new again. And so I did 75 hard, and it got me back. And at the end of that, I'm like, all right, I just did something most people won't do and won't do it right if they do it. And I just did it to the nth degree. I'm feeling back. And so it's still been an evolution, and that's how we are as humans. Like, it's going to be an evolution. But now, like, even if I saw that individual and face-to-face and we had a one-on-one, I'd thank him. That doesn't, now, so put that out there. Some people may think that's crazy. Here's the deal. Is my life better today than it was 3.5 years ago? So as much as he stabbed me in the back, he changed my life for the better.
We talk about that. We talk about one of the journeys of being able to take control of yourself. You control you. To have full control over you is learning to forgive and move on with your life so you can move forward. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in that moment in the past for a very long time, and you won't be able to move past the darkness and move forward through
playing that same broken record.
Yep. So that's absolutely amazing.
Now, that doesn't make him a good person.
No, not at all.
That doesn't mean I'm going to let him back in my life.
Yeah.
That just means, hey, my life, because I chose it to be, is better today than it was 3.5 years ago. In fact, my coach asked me maybe 6 months to a year later, he goes, Josh, if they came to you today and said, we want you back, we made an awful mistake, would you take it? And I said, I just asked one question. I said, exactly the way it was? And he goes, yeah. I said, no.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Now, before I go into any more of your business or even talking about the podcast, let's go back to 75 Hard, because it's one of the coolest things that I've seen some people do, and watching your journey through that the first time was pretty cool. And just following it on Facebook, just watching the videos, following it. And when I was taking one of my last tests for Muay Thai, it was my black sash test, and I was like, oh, I have to be in probably better shape than I was even for fighting. So I attempted it, and I made it 31, 32 days before I needed my third ACL surgery. And I was like, okay, I guess we're not finishing this. So being able to watch somebody finish it and then do it again, you've done it 2 or 3 times?
3 times. Well, second time I failed on day 55. I think it was day 50-something. It wasn't an ACL injury, but I got an infection. And I fought it off. I got an infection. I'll just be transparent. I'm on TRT, and I got an infection from an injection. Nothing, no bad stuff. Like, this is from a doctor, right?
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And I was down in Florida on spring break, and it must have, like, the way we deduced it is like I went into either a piss-filled pool because of kids or over-chlorinated pool, and something happened. So I'm calling him because I got like flu-like symptoms the next day. I go on my outdoor walk, and it was like the hardest walk I'd ever been. It was just a walk out down in Florida, down in South Florida. And I got back to the hotel room, and Jenna's like, are you all right? I was like, no, I'm not good. And then I pulled down my drawers, and I had this just red, and it was hot to the touch. So I'm texting with Nestor and saying, hey, I got a problem. And I shot him a picture. I was like, hey, you get to see my ass this morning. But he's like, I've seen a lot worse. He's an ER doc. So, but he phones me in some antibiotics. I continue working. They kicked in right away. It was oral antibiotics. They kicked in right away. I get home. I'm still doing my 2 workouts a day, still doing all my stuff. By that next Wednesday, stuff just goes back downhill. And I'm texting with him, and he's like, you need to get to the emergency room. And luckily I did, because I had an acute kidney injury.
Wow.
So I was in the hospital for 3 days. So that second time I didn't. So as soon as I got out of the hospital, I got back on it. I'm like, I'm just going to finish this off, because I was leading a group at that time of people that was going through it at the same time. So I got back on it, but I didn't technically finish that second time. Earlier this year, I finished the third time.
Man, the mental fortitude someone needs to do to finish it, but then to have an injury or to have an illness and come back from that. Was there any doubt? Was there even a question about it, or you were just like, nope,
No.
No,
and in fact, that's the way you have to go into it. Is it doesn't come hell or high water. I'm finishing this. The worst day was actually, I think, was the first time I did it. We were going on spring break, and our flight from Detroit to Florida gets canceled. Our luggage goes. I hadn't gotten a workout in that day because we had to get 4 kids to the airport by like 5:30 a.m. So I was planning to get both done in Florida. Our luggage goes to Florida. We're stuck in Detroit. It's 14 degrees out. We Ubered to a Target. I had to get winter clothes and indoor clothes. And I did my outdoor at like 4 p.m. on the parking ramp outside the Detroit airport at 14 degrees. I'm pretty sure the air traffic control thought I was some sort of terrorist because I'm just circling this parking ramp outside. And then I got my other one in around like 9 p.m. or something. So no matter what, you just got to go. You got to do it. I've done workouts at 2 in the morning due to travel. I've done workouts at 3 in the morning to start off the day because I got to travel. No matter what, you just do it. And that's the mental fortitude that it builds in you, is like, hey, I'm doing something hard that most people won't.
Non-negotiables. We do love those. That's, for me, I know these stories. I've watched the videos and read the post. And so I'm hoping that everybody that listens to this can see what you can do when you just decide that there's no other way to do it. I'm going to finish this. I'm just going to do it. And that's absolutely amazing.
First couple of weeks are the hardest. You can probably attest to that. Around day 30, you start feeling so dang good, then mentally clear. Body's feeling good because you're eating clean. You're not drinking alcohol. First time, day 40, I got to. We live in Wisconsin, right? Day 40, I had this epiphany. I'm on one of my rucks where I put a bunch of weight on my back while I walk to make things harder. And I was like, when's the last time I've gone 40 days without a single drop of alcohol? Straight. The answer, 17 years old.
Wow.
I was 41 at the time.
Wow.
Because it's such a cultural thing here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like, especially in the winter, like we're just going to go drink to stay warm, or we're just going to go to a happy hour to network or whatever it may be. And now so what I had the epiphany was, okay, I probably have at least a drink a night for 300 plus days a year. And if you guys quantify that up, like the sugars, the process on your liver, all the different things that it adds to. So the reason I don't look in my mid-40s now, I attribute to my cutback of alcohol almost entirely. Yes, being in good shape helps, but getting that alcohol out of your system. So now what I've switched to is I drink less than 40 days a year. One drink.
Wow. That's a drastic change.
This year I've had less than 30 drinks total.
That's amazing.
And even when I go out now, I'll have a Pellegrino and a lime and lemon, and it looks like a vodka soda or something. Yeah. But it's just something in your hand as you're socially drinking. So, it's just figuring that out, so you're out there and about, and you don't feel like the outcast, right? You just have something in your drink that.
I think Corey and I probably learned that in the music business. So you learn you don't want to be drunk at the shows, especially when you're handling the business aspect. Yeah. So you make it look like you have a drink and you're not really drinking, and that way everybody leaves you alone and doesn't bother you for drinks and do all that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, when people try and buy you drinks, right? Because you're in Wisconsin as well. I don't know, maybe it's elsewhere, but we just want to, hey, that's a kind gesture. Yes. Right? So someone did that for me on the golf course this summer. You know, it's noon. It's just not something I'm going to do anymore. So I was like, there's 3 other people in my foursome. I said, hey, thank you. I don't want this to go to waste. And I gave it to someone. Someone else want this? And they're like, yeah. Yeah, it's you stuck to, you were disciplined and you stuck to it. 75 hard reminds me, I've told my fighters that 75 hard is like a fight camp. It's not. In some ways, it's not as brutal, and in other ways, it's even harder because the eating is the same. You have to have strict eating as a fighter, or you're gonna suck. 75 hard is the same. Usually, you train twice a day. Usually, because fighting, you're working mitts or doing some kind of technical work that's hard work on top of doing strength training and cardio training. The one thing that I've actually implemented to my fighters that I borrowed from there is having them read and having them take notes and having them do these things, because I'm trying to give them this philosophy that's in my head. And I'm like, okay, how can I expedite this a little bit faster, because we have such a small time frame here. And I borrowed from that. Hey, check out this book. Or this chapter, or this is what I want you to read here. Bring me the notes, and we're going to talk about it an hour before we train, and we're going to break this down. So I would recommend it to anyone. Do 75 hard. The fact that you've done it 3 times. Do you have a limit? On how I'll do it. So it's actually part of a Live Hard program, and a lot of people miss that piece. It's a year-long program, and if people want to stick to it, it's a game changer for your life. So there's 75 days as the initial phase. Then there's 3 other 30-day phases, and they add a little twist to each one. The last 30-day phase is really unique, and you'll love this. One of those pieces that it's added is you got to do an act of service that day. So I've seen people get real creative. It's fun. Like they may buy someone's groceries. I've seen my buddy Dennis, he slips in $100 bills into some diapers. He'll be in the grocery and he'll literally put 100 in a diaper box, blessing some mother that day.
Yeah.
Or he'll do so, there's many different things. There's another part of the phase, I think it's phase 1, is you got an act to talk to a stranger. So,
especially now.
Yeah.
Now it seems we come from a generation where communicating comes pretty easy to us. When I look at younger people, they struggle with going up and just having a conversation with someone. That's great. That's
so I
incredible.
just watched an Instagram reel this morning a buddy sent me, and there's this school in somewhere in England. I don't want to say London. Somewhere in England. They put all the kids from this one class, they're around 12 to 14 years old, put their cell phones in a box for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
3
awesome.
weeks. And these kids at first are like going through holy shit moments, right? Like freaking out. And then what they noticed was, okay, the kids are playing outside more like we used to do back in the day. They're starting to socialize more. What the teachers noticed was their eye contact got immensely better with their communication. Like they started looking them in the eyes more.
I would have never
from
thought that.
kids to adults.
That's absolutely
just in a 3-week time frame, detoxing them from the cell phone device.
Wow. That's incredible. That's everything else made sense. That last one, that's absolutely incredible. I actually seen a video. I showed it to my wife. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. This dad grounded his kid outside. The kid came up to the window. All my friends told me when they're grounded, they can't go outside. He was like, yeah, we're not like your other friends' family. You're grounded outside. You're not allowed to come inside. And I've never seen anything like that. I'm like, oh, we live in a different generation for sure. That's incredible.
Yeah, you come home when the lights turn on outside.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And that was a blessing. So you talked about something, and it isn't on any of my sheets, and it's something that I've been processing and playing with a little bit, I guess, and reading more psychology aspects on it. Young men, specifically, not having their fathers. I do a lot of mentoring work with teenagers that are in the juvenile system, mentoring them using boxing programs or Muay Thai programs, hip hop, and spending a lot of time with them. And 90-something% of them, I know instantly that their dad isn't in the picture, instantly. And it's whether their behavior's there, they haven't had a lot of male role models. And then I think about it with myself. My dad wasn't around, and my stepfather was interesting person, I will say.
I use that word a lot.
Yeah.
It's the nicest way you can put about something.
He's
interesting.
He's an interesting person, and I had a lot of forgiveness to give and to overcome those things. You spoke about your father and how much of an impact, even when you were butting heads, was your dad in your life? Oh,
immense. And there's great stats on this too. The highest imprisonment rate. I mean,
yes.
All the stats point to if a father isn't in the home, a young male is worse off.
Yep.
Or a role model of some
Yes.
sorts, right? So my dad was a great role model. That being said, he was not perfect, as none of us are. And I talked about this often now because we've made amends on certain things, but I may have heard I love you 5 times growing up. And I confronted him as an adult. And he said, well, where do you think I learned it from? His dad. And here's the point, though. I was like, but you were smart enough to make a change.
Yep.
And that's what I was disappointed about. And And so I've made that conscious change that my kids hear from me at least once a day.
Yep.
Right?
Oh,
not to baby
awesome.
them. I'm going to still give them the tough lessons that my dad gave me as well.
Indeed.
That being said, is we all have the opportunity to be generational curse breakers. And that's one way that us men can do that, is looking a man in the eyes and saying, I love you, and giving him a hug and showing him that affection, because I didn't get that from my dad growing up. I learned to live without it. And it's a blessing and a curse. So if we think about the yin-yang symbol, I use this a lot, right? So everyone knows or has at least seen the yin-yang symbol. It's got the white with the black spot and the black with the white spot. So every major strength has a corresponding weakness, and every major weakness has a corresponding strength. And for me, not getting those affirmations, not getting the I love you, not getting the approval that I was seeking from my father, it turned into a super strength. I don't need it from anyone.
Yep.
I learned to live without it. I learned to get it from God and myself. And so when people see me and like, Josh, your confidence is through the roof, I was like, well, that came through pain.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, but like, and part of this, and this goes to that person that hurt me and ended my career with Northwestern, like, I'm a mirror for people now.
Wait, stop right there. What do you mean a mirror for people?
So because I'm so secure in my skin and so confident in who I am and what I bring to the table, I expose insecurities in others. And for the wrong person, that's a really bad thing. Like that narcissist, that was a really bad thing for him. I exposed all his weaknesses. And it tore him up inside, and that's why I believe he acted the way he did. For the right person, I can bring you up. I can help you turn into the beast that you've always wanted to be.
Corey coaches basketball. I coach fighters. You coach
Entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs.
Finance is still a part of it, but yeah, entrepreneurs and leaders.
I believe all three of us have this gift, and it's amazing. When you were talking about your dad, I can't tell you how many times Corey and I have talked about, like, we can count on one hand how many times we were told, I love you, or something like that. We've had these conversations, and it's that gift of the way, just so I can make sure that I'm on point here. When you said the mirror and you explained that, to me it sounds like we have the ability to see what someone's potential actually is that they don't see within themselves, and we almost act like a sculptor where we're helping them become that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And
that's
for the wrong
absolutely
person, right? So that wrong person, we'll go back to that person that hurt me. He didn't narcissists have this amazing way to survive. They were hurt as children, and now they've figured out a way to navigate through this world quite brilliantly through survival mechanisms. Exposing their insecurities to them, they don't want that. And they're going to fight back like that tiger in a cage.
Ooh.
But that right person, whether it's someone Corey's coaching, whether it's someone you're coaching, or someone that leans into me, that right person, they're like, they want all of that.
Yes.
They want to be that person that they were meant to be, that God divined them to be. And so those are the people we want to lean into and pour into. And it's not us like saying we're better than them. It's like, no, you in fact could be better than us.
Yes.
If I get you to believe in you.
Yes. Yes. That's, I'm curious. Did the thought ever come across your mind when you dealt with that narcissist to just close yourself in and not help people in the same way?
Interesting question, because that would be a natural, like if someone hurts you that bad, right? Like the natural thing would be, all right, I'm done with people. Or, even so, like I could even segment that down to like, all right, I'm never helping a black person again.
Yeah.
Like if we got that scarce and that real and someone hurts you that bad, like you could close off. But that wouldn't be living into my divine purpose. My divine purpose is to inspire and impact people. And so if I'm one with my divine purpose and the gifts that God endowed me with, then I would be leaning against God's word. I would be leaning against the gifts that I was gifted. So I would go against everything I stood for, and I couldn't do it.
That's incredible. Let me just give you your flowers, because that's absolutely incredible, because most people, the average person, wouldn't do that. I have dealt with those people that were fighters, because the amount of confidence to borderline ego you need to walk into a cage or a ring and fight someone is insane.
Yeah, I boxed for a couple years.
Yeah.
I get it.
So it's
not like you guys, but yeah,
it's insane. So I've dealt with those people, and I never stopped, but I would be lying if I didn't say it didn't cross my mind. Why am I doing this? Why do I continue to give myself openly to so many people, and for it to just crumble the way it did? And listening to you talk is inspiring. It's absolutely amazing, because it's like you just get it. You get it, and the amount of work you have to put into yourself in order to get it is insane. The amount of pain you have to be willing to walk through to get it. The dark rooms that you had to go in and find that light switch somewhere in the other room is absolutely incredible, man. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've only actually shared this story one other time, I think, in my life. So it's interesting. Our society, our government, our media, our politicians want to segment us by groups instead of as individual humans, which we all are. And so I've been thinking about this a lot lately. So my first friend growing up was a mixed race. His name was also Josh. At 13 years old, I'm in a rough neighborhood in Peoria, Illinois. That's how I became a Chicago fan.
Nice.
I grew up in Illinois before. My loyalties were tied to Chicago before moving to Madison in 8th grade.
Do you Packer fans hear that? We have Bear fans in the building right now. Let's go.
Right. I was at Game 7 for Cubs World Series, greatest sporting event ever.
Oh my goodness, I cried.
Yeah.
I cried like a baby.
So 13 years old, this is the story I've only shared one other time. My friend had gotten in a fight earlier that week with this kid, and we happened to run into him on the playground. And he goes and grabs a couple of his buddies, and we're walking back to his mom's office, and they pull guns on us. And those two kids happen to be black, and the other kid that he beat up was white. And I'm sitting there thinking, all right, my friend pisses his pants. I mean, that's the fear that he went through, and I'm sure you've seen that. Like, people have different fight or flight mechanisms, and I was nothing but like stoic. And I had to process this as I got to adulthood. There's been certain instances in my life where I could go, oh, well, then they all must be like that. Or if I listen to the media or the government, like, oh, all white people must be like that. All black people must be like that. All Asians must be like that. That's not the case. We're all individual humans. I had to go back and remember, hey, no, my first friend was black. His name was also Josh. We also bonded through that. We were like 5 years old. The first friend that I can remember. And lived right across the street. And there's been certain instances, this instance that the person hurt me. It didn't matter his skin color. It mattered who he was as a person.
Exactly.
And so I just been thinking about this more and more as a society, is like, we got to tune out what they're trying to get us to do, because all the divide and conquer technique and the propaganda. Think about this. They've spent probably in 50 years, 60 years, trillions of dollars to get us to hate each other. That's the propaganda mind warping that they've done to keep us divided. Because I'm in a position where I've been to D.C. Part of my job was going to lobby in D.C. for the financial services industry. I saw the corruption on both sides. So I entered D.C. in 2010 as a Republican. I left as I don't identify with either of these bozos. Going, they're all corrupt.
Yeah.
They'll all sit there and lie directly right to my face. They'll all go on TV, bash each other, and then I'll see them in the cigar bar at the golf course with each other, yucking it up. It's all acting. And yet they get us to hate each other, or to every 2 to 4 years say that Republicans are racist. Like, it's just like, it's garbage. And then we buy into it by, I identify as this, or I identify as this. Like, no, you don't. Identify as human and actually go in and like pick the right person that's actually going to weed out this bad shit.
Yes.
And we got to stop identifying ourselves as groups. I love the clip. It was Morgan Freeman was on some late night talk show. And they're like, what do you think we should, this was during like the BLM stuff. What do you think we should do to quell race relations in the U.S.? He goes, stop talking about it.
Yes. And the guy was completely speechless. He didn't know what to do with it. He was like, wait, what?
Stop talking about it. He repeated himself. Stop talking about it. We're all humans living this human experience, and we can't control how we were born, the physical attributes. You're a big dude.
Yeah.
I grew up a real skinny dude.
Yeah.
Like, and those in our skin color, we couldn't control that now, but we're all going to go through trials and tribulations throughout our lives. And let's find that human interconnectedness to help each other grow and succeed and win in life.
Exactly. That's the only thing I can say to that. Yes. Could we co-sign that 100%? Is this, okay, so we've talked about family, we've talked about building the business, we talk about your business that you're running now. Now, how does your business coincide with your podcast? How are they connected?
A little bit.
So
I named Spartan Leadership based on the Greek theme. I was actually shocked that it wasn't taken. And so when I looked it up, I'm like, wait, how is this not owned by Michigan State or something? And it wasn't. So I went with that, and just, the movie 300, like, it's a badass movie.
Yes.
Like, so,
Spartans.
Yeah. So kind of went with that theme and just kept it on the leadership path. So I'm interviewing entrepreneurs, other leaders, some in the political sphere, and then some that have been in the military as well as entrepreneurial space. So I've had a lot of ex-special forces on, as well as a lot of entrepreneurs, and then just bringing different flavors. Like, I had someone that was a forensic accountant on. I knew kind of what they did.
Yeah.
Like the movie Accountant was the best reference that I had with Ben Affleck. But getting into what she did and how she works with companies and how entrepreneurs can avoid the pitfalls of a high-level employee stealing from them was quite enlightening. So I try to bring on different flavors in that regard. Now, does it directly tie to business? I would say only loosely from a marketing aspect. Is the reason I started a podcast. I actually started when I was at Northwestern, and my marketing guy brought it to me. Hey, it'll position you as an influence in the community, get the name out a little bit more. I was like, all great reasons. The reason I'm going to start a podcast is so that my kids have my voice. And so we're the first generation. So but let me preface it. We are 2 generations from being forgotten. We're the first generation that may not be true. The reason it may not be true is because of this. What we're doing today, the internet lives forever, right? We can you can delete all the tweets you want. These politicians. LeBron, you can hop off social media.
Yeah.
People got receipts.
Yeah, they will dig. They will
People
find
got
it.
receipts. But so that may be the bad side of things. The good side of things is this. All of this is going to live in perpetuity. So your great-great-great-great-grandkids will have your voice, will have what you look like, will have your thoughts via this, or what you write on social media. So you be cognizant of this. Like, if you're just on social media bitching about what your boss did today or how your life sucks or whatever, that's what your great-great-grandkids are going to read. Versus if you go out and write a book, if you go out and produce a podcast, if you go out and actually produce content on your social media that matters, your great-great-great-grandkids are going to know who you were, know how you thought, know how your thoughts evolve over time, and will be impacted for generations to come.
That might be the first time that someone has shook me. I have never once thought about it that way. Not once. And all I talk about with my kids is building a legacy and how we can work together to build a legacy and how we can do this and break the generational curses and do something to impact our lives and our families' lives 5 generations down the line, because that's not something that I came from, and to be able to change that. And I never once thought about the podcast in that way or thought about things that way. My goal was just to help other people and to discuss things that I've been through, and no different than anybody else really. But that was, man, that brought out a lot of different emotions right there, because I'm listening to you say that and then I'm picturing it like I'm not going to be here more than likely in 50 years. When my daughter has a kid, like this is...
Yeah. Well, so one of the coolest traditions that I think in all cultures is the Mexican De la Muerta, the Day of the Dead. Mm-hmm. And my father-in-law died in 2018, really tragically. It was suicide, and it shook us because no one saw. I mean, brilliant entrepreneur, man of God, like closest thing that he would hate that I say this, but the closest thing that I saw of a living representation of Jesus. Mm. That being said, he battled mental demons. Mm-hmm. And the stress of his business, along with those mental demons and some of his health issues with his gut, caught up to him. But then that movie Coco came out. Mm. And I told my wife, I was like, you're not watching this. I'll watch it with the kids. And I started bawling. But the De la Muerta, thinking about that and how they honor the dead, we don't have anything American like that. You know, we may go visit a gravestone. Mm-hmm. We may get sad around the holidays because they're not there anymore. But we don't have a day that honors the dead like that. Mm-hmm. And that's a really special thing, I think, from the Mexican culture that we could replicate. Yeah. But that's what gets me thinking about legacy, right? It's like, so in that movie, it's when the last person remembers or honors you that you, in the afterlife, you don't get to cross that bridge. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like, okay, well, how can we always remember those that have impacted us in our lives? And now with this digital age and things being able to live into perpetuity, whether you write a book, whether you produce a podcast, whatever it may be, that's a way to remember us, remember the lessons, and continue to live on.
Man, that's incredible. That's, every time I think that I can't be blown away, or I don't know if I'm going to be blown away, okay, you've done it. You've done it. This is that hit my heart different, to be honest. It's that's incredible. That's the way you look at life and the way you're approaching things. We might be the same age, but I can respectfully say you are literally 10 chapters ahead of my thinking. It's like I am coming to those points of where, hey, go hang out with your family. Don't put everything into work. The business isn't going to fall apart. The business can live without you. Go have family time with your family. And honestly, it helped destroy. It wasn't the only reason, but it did help destroy my first marriage. Mm-hmm. Everything was like, in order to battle my demons, it was put into my work. It was that. And to hear you speak, you're just at a different level. And that's awesome for me to talk to someone who's at a completely different level where I'm like, oh, that's awe-inspiring, because a lot of times I feel like I'm that person for so many other people.
Yeah. Well, and we all need those. Like, I have people that are 10 chapters ahead of me, and that's where I continue to learn. Like, so I'm a coach, by the way, this is a lesson. If you have a coach that isn't being coached, you don't have a good coach. Put that out there, because no one reaches the mountaintop and is like, oh, I've arrived.
Yeah, no, you're always.
And you think about the best fighters in the game. Like there's no arrive. Like you think about John Jones. Now they want to put him up against Aspinwall. He's like, that's not even.
It's not
It's not. That does nothing for my legacy. Right. So you got there. He's not that he's not arrived. He's like he's looking towards what is the higher mountaintop.
What's going to scare him the most when you're at that point fighting? You need you have to fight with fear. Yeah. There has to be that fear. And if it's not there, you're cooked.
Whether you're stepping into an octagon, a ring, or a stage, as soon as you lose any amount of fear or butterflies, you know you shouldn't enter that arena. So every time I step on a stage, I do a gut check to make sure those butterflies are there. That I never want to arrive. I never am going to think that I've arrived. Is because the moment you do, the moment you're on the downslope. Because there's so many people coming to get you. And they could be, you don't even know who they are. Like, we're not putting names to it. It's like, look, everyone's trying to climb this mountain, and the moment you stop, someone's going to pass you. And so you have to keep climbing. And so everyone should be coached. Everyone should be mentored. Everyone should be pouring into and looking through these actual lenses, books, people that inspire you, all the different things. They have to be in your forefront. You got to be getting those inputs daily.
Well, that leads to the next part. Oh, and thank you, TikTok, for that lovely noise that just made. Like, it does that. Whenever it gets up to that hour, it does that. So the question I have for you then, and anyone that's chiming in, people are still joining. I love that. One, where can people find you? How can people reach you?
So it's great about not having a common last name. I have great SEO. So add Josh Kosnick for all platforms. Spartan Leadership Podcast is on all platforms, including YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all those different things. But add Josh Kosnick on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm not on TikTok yet. I know I got marketing people telling me about it. But
well, you might want to wait and see, because I am watching
the government.
I'm like, I don't have a following like this on Instagram and YouTube. And my wife's like, well, you didn't have it on TikTok, so you could build it. I'm like, I know that, but it's it's growing here, but.
Yeah, we'll see. I think things will get shaken out, because we shouldn't be shrinking our platforms. That's what we did in pharma and the airline industry, and look what we're all paying for that shit now. But I won't go down that path, because we'll get into a tangent we don't need to get into.
If somebody wants to work with you, and so they just reach out to you, and like what?
JoshKosnick.com is the easiest platform, and you can file an inquiry to see where we might fit. Because I do discovery calls with people instead of just saying, oh, these are the programs. Now, I do have certain set programs. That being said, I'm about help and impact. So I don't have a massive following on any platform, because I'm looking to be of impact, not an influencer. So I'd rather be an impactor and not have buy followers and people that aren't going to matter. I want the people that matter to find me, and the ones that want to be influenced to find me, and that's where we'll be. But at JoshKosnick.com, and then I also have a farm. If you're local and want to host any events or talk about any events, 5 Bridges Farm, so 5 spelled out, BridgesFarm.com. Check it out. File an inquiry there if you want to utilize it for, I don't know, wedding, bourbon tasting, any corporate retreat, whatever it may be. I got that property to share with people, to make sure that they can unplug, like we were talking about earlier with our kids, to unplug from these computer screens, the fluorescent lights, and get out into nature and actually be kids again and leave as a changed human.
Oh, that's awesome. Man, thank you so much for joining us. And man, everyone have a good day. Make sure that you control your life. You stay in control of you, and we'll go from there. Peace.